everyone, and welcome to the Launch Gravy Podcast. I'm your host, Larry Weber, and today's show, I'm going to be speaking with Natacha Maheshe. Over 7 years at Amazon and AWS as a product manager for Amazon devices and marketing leadership roles for AWS data and analytics. More recently, Natasha has been at Google Cloud helping lead developer marketing programs. But before all this, Natasha worked in nonprofits helping organizations build sustainable businesses in East Africa and India. So much great experience from product management to product marketing. Natasha, welcome to the Launch Gravy Podcast.
Thank you, Larry. I'm super excited to be here.
No, we're super happy to have you. And so, look, let's cut right into it. You are the developer marketing lead at Google. Can you tell us a little more about your role, your responsibility, and even a brief overview on GCP and the Google Cloud?
All right. Yeah, sure. I guess I'll start with the overview of GCP. As you know, cloud computing. And so what we do when we talk about Google Cloud today, we talk about the new way to cloud. And by that, we mean we really want to help developers and companies and enterprises to adopt cloud in a way that really works for them, like new trends and stuff like that. And obviously, with AI being top mind, so a lot of the things that we do really focus on AI. When it comes specifically to my job, I lead messaging and campaigns for developer marketing for all of Google Cloud. And specifically, one of my focus this year is really seeing how the whole Google developer ecosystem fits into cloud. So thinking about, because Google has always been a developer friendly company, right? We've got products
Yeah.
like Android, Kaggle, Firebase, Flutter, Go, TensorFlow. So there's all of those different developer communities. And so my job is to see how do we help them build with cloud GCP as the preferred cloud when they're building new applications. So that involves a lot of understanding developer use cases, understanding pain points and integration points where we have a really good story. So for example, for mobile app developers who are using Firebase, using Google Cloud is a no-brainer because when you're trying to store your data or orchestrating, GCP has seamless integration with Firebase. So part of my job is really looking at how do I make that easier for developers who are building new application or existing application. And a new focus for me right now is how do you add AI into your existing applications. For example, you could have an app that already exists and you want to add some type of AI to do maybe forecasting or like fraud detection because maybe your app is like a banking app, right? How do you do that easily without having to build a whole workflow? Today, it's actually really very easy because we have different APIs and pre-trained models that are available in Model Garden that people can use to add AI to their existing applications. But there's also how you can leverage AI to build faster, right? So with code completion, debugging, and just how to streamline your whole coding process with Gemini. So that's one of the things that I've been looking at for the last few months. Um, and my goal and my dream is to make sure that every developer who is using a Google product can think of Google Cloud as the best place to build secure and fast applications.
Let me pause real quick. How do you keep up with all this stuff? Like, you just rattled off like 500 things. I almost think I need an encyclopedia or like seriously though, what you're learning and you need to help out a community that is on the cutting edge and building the latest and the greatest. And as Google is developing and building the latest and the greatest, just a quick question. How do you, even someone in the marketing space or an ex-product manager, like how do you stay on top of all this great technology?
The truth?
Yeah.
The truth is Gemini. So the truth is Gemini. Well, I do read a lot. There's like a lot of articles that I've been reading, and there's a lot of great newsletters out there right now about just how to keep up with what's going on in AI. But to be honest, I just typed my questions in Gemini, and now I'm using the advanced version now at work, and it's teaching me a lot. So, for example, one of the campaigns that I'm trying to put together is how to build mobile and web apps with Gemini. And obviously, I'm not a developer, right? So, trying to learn how the whole building process starts from Android to like for your front end and how do you use cloud for the back end and how AI is kind of ingrained in every single aspect of whatever you're building from front end to back end, right? So I asked Gemini, I was like, explain this to me like you would explain this to a 5-year-old. because that's
Oh, nice.
maybe my understanding of the technology. And he did. And then he
That's
keep asking
fantastic.
more questions. So honestly, I think for all of the product marketing managers or anyone in marketing today, I think people say AI is going to take away our jobs. I don't think so. I think it's going to enhance the way we learn and the way we do our jobs.
Absolutely. And it's something, it's even a theme on as we've kicked off a number of these podcasts. AI is everywhere.
Hmm.
And it's in the sense of it's augmenting the product marketer
Exactly.
and allowing our marketing in general or product management and augmenting and allowing us to, and I think you hit the nail on the head a little bit with, education. You're a sponge. You need to
Hmm.
digest as much as you can. But back, I don't know, 10 years ago, dating myself, I'd have to go get an O'Reilly book and dig through,
Yep.
where is this content? Or maybe search like Google and find
Yeah.
this. Now it's, hey man, we're gonna do it for you, and
Yeah.
that's where a lot of the AI, the Gen AI, a lot of the AI
Hmm.
capabilities allow you to digest and incorporate that knowledge quicker and faster. So I think that's brilliant. I think that's smart, and I'm doing it myself too as well. That makes sense. So real quick, well, I'm gonna dig in. I really want to get into a lot of this developer stuff and what you're working on,
Hmm.
but I want to first jump into your experience in the past with product launches and just get it out of the way a little bit because I know you've been involved closely with launches. You've launched products in the past, and get from your take, maybe you can walk us through your experiences for learnings for the audience of, I don't know, a launch that maybe, hey, this is the way it should be done, or I don't know, maybe a launch in which it didn't really hit the what you were looking for.
All right. So yeah, there's a few things that I want to talk about when it comes to launches. I think there's the traditional sense that everyone thinks this is how you launch things or new product. But I think there's also ways to customize the way you launch for yourself, but also given the product that you are launching, the industry you're in, or even
Mhm.
like what you're facing, right? So my last launch was a brand new product. So I've launched features to an existing product, but my last launch was a brand new product, so bringing it to market. And to say it was challenging would be lying. It wasn't challenging would be lying. It really was challenging, but it was also extremely rewarding.
Huh.
So the last launch that I did, I was still at AWS, and I was bringing a new product to market in a very it was a very anticipated product in the market, I would say. And so, were we ready to launch it? I don't think so, but we had to do it, right? And so, that just means you have to be extremely flexible when you're working on the launch because things might not always work the way you think they would. So, you have to be flexible, willing to take feedback. The great thing about launching when I was still at AWS is the way that launches are processized, right? There's a process that you follow that make the whole launch process very streamlined and kind of follow the steps and know that if you do follow the steps and you do the right things, you know that everything will go well. And then you still, even if it's very processized, it still leaves room for creativity, right? Because like as a marketer, you still want to make sure that you're doing something outside of the ordinary because that's why we are marketers, right? So at AWS, we start with a PRFAQ. For people who don't know, it's a document that's a real PR press release
Hmm.
that we would have why already. So when it's ready, you can actually ship it to a news outlet and they can run it. So you have to make sure that it's properly written and it's got all the information. It's got all the customer stories that you want to highlight, the features to the customer and all of that. And then there's a set of questions that if this were to be wired, that we probably want to answer. And those questions would
Hmm.
be what is the product? What does it do? What problem is it solving? How is it solving it? How are we pricing it? And then how is it comparing to the competition? Is there anything similar in the markets and stuff like that?
Right.
And yes, Amazon doesn't always care about what the competition is doing, but at least in that sense, we do some type of competitive analysis to see how can we be better than anything in the market, so that when we are launching something that's going to be very useful. But before you even think about bringing this to market, you have to think about the end customer. Because when you're
Yeah.
talking to engineers, right, an engineer will like think of a problem that their work they have, and they'll say, I can fix this because every engineer has this problem. but is that really what people are
Yeah.
looking for, right? And so there's a lot of back and forth with the engineers who are and the product managers who are building something, because there's a product marketing manager. I feel like you are the quarterback, but you are also the person who is representing the customer. You really are the voice of the customer in those meetings. And so what you do is you get the insights that customers are looking for. These are the pain points. How are we fixing or addressing these pain points for the customer? And it can be very contentious. And it's not just at AWS. I think in my experience, the person who's building the product look at it as like their child. And sometimes they
Yeah.
don't want to listen and hear like, well, this might not be what people are looking for. You might need to do a little pivot before you can launch this.
One of my greatest learnings, and in full disclosure, I worked at AWS, right? And one of the biggest learnings, I almost feel that every product marketer, every product manager should actually do time in AWS to get the experience.
Honestly.
Start with the customer and work backwards
Hmm.
is probably one of the most important things. And you can win almost any argument if you're questioning, hey, should we bring this to market? Should we work on this? What does the customer care? If the
Yeah.
customer doesn't care, don't throw it out the window, but like you need to start with them.
Yeah.
Otherwise your product's going to fail. And it's going to be, as you said, like, oh, we're a feature function. And we're going to be like just focused on some of these areas
Hmm.
because they feel good. Or I think they're ask the customer, talk to the customer. And it takes time and effort to do that. But I think that's one of the most important learnings I had from that experience.
Yeah.
I think you're hitting the nail on the head again, right? A lot of the great stuff through that it's just a sense of rigor of building the PRFAQ and defining what it is you want to build ahead of time, and then making sure that you follow through on that. And then what's the
Exactly.
drift on that? As it drifts, you're like, whoa, this isn't exactly what we built, or man, this isn't ready yet
Yeah.
for prime time. And that's what you're getting to. And I want to hear a little bit more of, okay, it's not ready for market. Why? What happened? How did you handle that? Because
So
I think a lot of us has been here before, and I definitely have. And I'm just
yeah,
going to zip my lips on a couple of them.
I know, and I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this. It wasn't ready. We did announce it, and I think it was the right decision, though. In hindsight, it was the right decision, and I think that happens a lot in the industry where people announce or launch something that's not ready yet. And I
Mhm.
think one of the reasons why is, especially when you are customer driven, you want something that will delight the customers, and if they don't test it, if they don't try it out, you may not always have the feedback when they are
Mm.
using it. And so yes, we had an MVP basically, so we didn't launch the full thing, but we did have an MVP that we could go to market with. And the whole idea was to get real feedback with real use cases, because we've had like feedback from internal feedback from us testing the product, or even some customers who have told us, yes, this is my use case and here's this is working. But then when you open
Mhm.
it up to customers across different industries, and that have to abide by different regulations, right? Because if you are in financial services versus healthcare, the regulations are very different. Or if you're in government versus
Mhm.
entertainment, right? And so when you open it up to like different industries and different customer type, whether it's size or industry, it allows you to get feedback in ways that you wouldn't be able to if you're only focusing on a small group of customers when you're launching, right? And so the idea of launching that product before it was ready was more about getting the real feedback from what customers want, so we can build something in like a couple of months that really addresses that. But then the other thing
Yeah.
is, as you're in marketing, we all know like this industry is changing and evolving so much. I mean, today with AI, everyone is kind of like pivoting the way they do things. But that was before AI was like what it is today. You still have to understand and listen to the trends and what's going on in the industry, because you also don't want to be last, right? You could have a good product, but then if you're last to market, there's always an advantage to being first, right? And so you kind of have to listen to all these different signals, whether it's customers or it's the industry that's telling you. It could be you talking to the analyst, right? Telling you, hey, here's what we are seeing. Here's what is going to be the next thing in the next 2 years, in the next 10 years. And you really want to get ahead of that. And so in some cases, you launch something that might not be fully developed, but it's used because one, it gives you the advantage of being first in the market, first in the
Mhm.
industry, but it also allows you to get real feedback from customers.
Yeah. I think one of the digest here, one of the understandings I have is for a person listening and like, oh my gosh, I have to, or maybe they're facing the challenge of launching a product that's not ready for prime time. My take is that if you are honest with the customer and you illustrate this is coming,
Hmm.
or hey, this is MVP only, and you level set with the customer early on what their expectations are or what the expectations of the product are, that's goodness. That's
Definitely.
okay. And then getting their feedback to alter or change it. And or if you pre-launch, at least you're illustrating we are working on this.
Yeah,
I think where the importance drives in making sure that you actually follow through.
exactly. Yeah.
I've been in some of these where I'm not going to say names,
And I
but
know what you're talking about.
products have been launched and they don't exist, and they're in an analyst report somewhere, and you're how do I handle a product that doesn't exist?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's bad. That's not good. And I think that's the kind of thing folks and product managers really need to stay away from.
Hmm.
But it's okay to have an idea, a goal, as long as you level set with that customer, with the customer base, and preferably get them to get hands on as you develop it.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's the whole idea of preview, public
Yeah.
preview or private preview. Yes, we always don't like them, but I think it's a good way for us to get feedback from customers. And then when you talk about pre-announcing or launching something that's not ready, you mentioned something about making sure the product end up existing. And I think the onus is on you as the PMM, because I honestly think that the PMM is really the quarterback in this situation. You really have to look at all the different part of the team and make sure everyone comes together. You really have to push for a plan for when this is going to be available. So if it's a private preview, you need to have a date with like engineering
Hmm.
timeline on when we are going on, like if it's private, when do we go to public preview and when do we go to GA, right? And so
Yeah.
if you don't have that plan, obviously you should push for it, because then you don't want to go to customers, announce something, and then you break their trust. So it's the
Sure.
onus is on you as the marketer to make sure that everyone is committed to what they say they were gonna do.
It's totally a consistent theme as we talk about launching products, launching services, launching features is not breaking trust with the
Hmm.
customer, because it is a slippery slope, specifically as roadmaps change, because hey,
Exactly.
there's a critical situation and we have to take care of a large customer's issues, and so we're not going to be able to come out with the product. Okay, just make sure that this goes out mainly to the development team. Make sure you communicate that and communicate it
Exactly.
quickly to the other folks that are a part of the launch
Hmm.
process, because it's not just you. um, but anyway, yeah,
That's
no,
what you're
great
saying
insight.
is very important, especially now with AI, because I have a feeling that many people were working on different things until AI blew up and they had to put that like, okay, I have to pause and respond to this AI thing that's just like imminent, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and I honestly wonder how people manage that, because you've got this thing that's imminent and really urgent, but you've also had these other commitments that you still have to deliver on. How do you kind of manage those two? And as you said, I think communication is key here, whether it's internally or with customers.
I would just ask Gemini for
I
the answer
know.
on that one.
It knows everything.
Oh, good. Hey, I want to shift gears a little bit from the launch aspect and go into specifically what you're working on now. You are, and because you're bringing up a lot of great things, I would like to dig in a little bit of your time with AI, also with the developer community, because in many ways the developers are the customers
Hmm.
for many of these offerings, and they're so close to the details, and their lifeblood depends on. We talk about big launch versus feature launch. Many times those features are just as important, if not more
Hmm.
important, than the main launch.
Hmm.
Sometimes you're doing a main launch, sometimes entering a new market, there's new challenges, new
Hmm.
name. There's a lot of weight you have to carry there. But some of those features could be, wow, way more impactful for someone who's building a new product. And so that's wicked important on how that gets developed and how that gets communicated. So what I'd love to ask you, maybe I know you've been involved with a couple of different events at Google when you launch product, Google and I/O and others. Can you tell me a little bit more about your time around these events and interactions with the developers, and I don't know, announce or release or even get it into the hands of the developer to start giving some of that feedback?
Before I say anything, I'm just gonna say this is only my opinion and has nothing to do with what Google says or does. It's just my opinion and my experience as I was working through the different events. So this year we had two great events. We had Google Cloud Next in Vegas for the first time, and then we had I/O. And I was lucky to be able to go to both because I/O is a very select number of customers and even a very select number of employees who get invited. So I was able to work both events. So for next, we had a lot of announcements, and so the different PMM teams like own and manage those announcements. But from my end, on the developer side, so on the expo floor, the way we designed the expo floor for next, we actually have two spaces. We have one for everyone, where it's like ITDMs and developers, and those are very experiential demos. You really can touch the product. But then we have a different space which we've always called Innovators Hive, which is dedicated to developers. And so in
Mm,
that space, what we do is we make sure that we are addressing all of the developer needs, right? Whether it's related to the launch or related to the product. And we do that in a couple of ways. One, we do that by creating demos of either new launches that was just announced or something close enough to that. And some of the demos are hands-on, where you actually get hands-on keyboard or you physically do something with the product. Some of
mm.
the demos are um, on screen, so it's like a recorded screen, and you can kind of see in the console like how this specific product works. So one, we did two big demos inside of Innovators Hive this year that I was really proud of. One of them was what we call Gemini Ride. So we had Gemini Ride and Gemini Golf. And so basically, for golf, it was like we built a mini golf in the expo floor, and developers
Okay.
can come. You play. You're just playing regular golf, but Gemini is actually doing the announcer, and then yes, Gemini was announcing. Gemini was capturing the your play basically, and tell you
Okay.
like how good you are, like how can you improve and stuff like that. The rides one was very interesting because it was a car that had Gemini in it. And so the car would be driving around a fake city that we built. And it would understand contextually like what's needed. So you can type and say, I am hungry. Gemini understands if you're hungry, you need to go to the restaurant. The car will drive itself to the restaurant. And then
Are people in these
no,
cars?
it's a fake, it's a small car. Those are
Oh,
little
okay. I thought it's
cars.
one of these like the driverless cars that are
No, it
driving
was like a
people
small car
around.
that you just controlled by Gemini, and so it was using Gemini 1.5, which we were making GA at that time, right? At Next.
Yeah.
And so you could say I need to go to the bank, and then after the bank, I need to go to the store. So the car understands that if you say you need to go to the bank or that I need money, contextually knows you have to go where there's the financial district is. It will drive itself or drive you there. So we built it was like a fake little city that we built that was on the ground, and it would do image. So there was image recognition, right? Because it has to recognize that this is a hospital versus this is a bank versus this is a restaurant. And it was a
Mm.
good way for a developer to play with Gemini and see in real time how you can leverage it, right? And the good news is every single demo that we created at Next is available today on GitHub, right? So you can
Oh,
actually
wow,
get the
great.
code and go implement it and change it if you want. There's another one that was very simple where you can sketch out your ideal website. So you can sketch it out, or you can take a picture of your ideal website, and Gemini would actually create the code and generate the code for you to go build that website, right?
Wow.
So
It's
very
pretty boss.
simple, right? But it kind of just shows how you can make things very easy for developers. But beyond developers, it kind of also opens up like possibilities for people who are not like developers in the sense that we all are familiar with to use technology. So the one with like the sketch to web, where you can sketch out your website. Usually when you're doing that, you have to work with a web designer who's going to build out like your website and stuff like that. But like you being able to just like sketch it out what it looks like and having the code ready with like the JavaScript, I think it's incredible because now I feel like even myself, I can build my own websites without having been a web developer.
No, that's great. And I think too is I think making it approachable to
Mhm.
people. Sometimes folks, I'd say myself included, when I first started getting into early areas of marketing in areas I didn't understand. So
Mhm.
if it was for certain development areas where I didn't have a background in,
Mhm.
then I always thought, oh my gosh, because dealing with engineers was very much speeds and feeds, must be technical. You
Yeah.
must have stuff that's super like in reality, everyone, people have their areas of expertise,
Mhm.
but most people are trying to consume, as you said before, even earlier in our conversation, like I might not know everything. And if you come in and jump in and make it so like over the top, throw too many acronyms at me, and they're like, oh, Larry, like you have to come, I don't know, bearing gifts in many ways
Yeah.
with the education and keep it, I KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, but like
Yeah.
very much digestible so that anyone can understand this, but have the technical rigor and knowledge behind it. And I think that's really cool with the way you illustrated the golf. Anyone, not everyone, but like most people know how to play putt-putt golf.
Yeah.
And if my hand's a physical thing in the real world, and you're now tying this back to what AI can do, as well as what's processing in the background, how is it learning, and
Mhm.
how is it interfacing with me, regardless of my developer
Mhm.
skills. I now have a new knowledge of, wow, what could I do here? How could I do something differently? How could I implement this?
Yeah.
And you capture a wider audience that from anyone from the super technical that like they're going to jump in and start building out the next greatest, latest, greatest app to someone who might be at a more senior level
Mhm.
who is like, whoa, we should really thinking about investing or building
Yeah.
and growing in this area. And it brings the different sides together.
Yes.
I got a little off topic on this, but I find that very interesting. And I really enjoy where you get off of the screen. I love the hands on
Yeah.
keyboard, but if you pull things out of the screen and into the real world, it means a lot more.
Yeah.
It means
Definitely.
it's great for recall as
Oh,
well.
definitely. You know what? When I was at IO, I actually was manning one of the booth we had, and we had a demo. We did have that demo at Next, and we brought it back to IO because people really, really loved it. It was Hot Wheels, like the simple Hot Wheels that you used to play with as a kid, like with different cars and stuff like that. So the way we built it just the regular Hot Wheels. We added sensors so you can collect data in real time. It was just showing a real simple IoT example how you collect data to when you can actually analyze it, like do analytics, right? And so people would come to us because like they'll just see this giant thing of Hot Wheels. Oh, I want to play, I want to race, and they will race
Yeah.
each other, and you could see the data right on the screen, like how many races we've had. You can query, and we had Gemini help with queries. So for people who didn't know SQL, you can type in plain language and say, I want to know which car has won the most races. And Gemini will generate the query, right? And you can run it in BigQuery and you can see, oh, the blue car won the most races, right? But it's a good way and an easy way to show people how the technology that we use every day can also be very accessible by people because like Hot Wheels is like fun. Every kid that I know played with it. It was driving. Everyone was like, I want to play. I used to play this when I was a child, and you'll see people be like, I want to take a picture of me playing this so I can go show it to my kid. But then when you start explaining the whole like data process of like data collection, ingestion, to like how it's doing, it's streaming the data into a data warehouse and getting ready for analytics without you having to do anything. It's a good way to showcase technology without having to go deeply technical and explaining it to people who might not either have the time or might not have that specific expertise. They might be a security professional and don't really know a lot about data, or they might be a cloud architect, might know a lot about data, and they get to kind of like familiarize themselves with something else beyond what they know.
No, that's great. And yeah, I want to look for videos. See if you have
I,
anything up there.
I'll send you some
No, like
pictures.
no, let it. If I could put it in the show notes, it would be fantastic. 'Cause I think that stuff's so interesting. Um, Getting back to looking at the customer, really,
Mhm,
the developer, the customer here, and we're talking about launch, pre-launch,
mhm,
at these events. Get hands-on. We're going to demonstrate. We're going to
mhm.
show. It's just a part of education, and we're illustrating the value, and for specifically for someone who might not have seen it before. What, can you tell me a little bit about how do you capitalize on that? What I mean by this is later on, as you go through the products out there in the wild now, and yay, the launch is done, success. No,
Mhm.
not really, because there's the whole step of after the fact. That's where
Oh
you make your
yeah,
money. That's where you build your, and I'm going to say the communities.
yeah.
And can you tell me a little bit more about how you approach communities of customers, developers,
Mhm.
and how do you nurture them? How do you make sure that they have the latest and the greatest? Because not everyone got to go to this event. So you
Yeah.
said it's a select few people, but the world is out there listening.
Mhm. Yeah, I think we always tend to focus on that one time. Like the launch is on February 10th, and then that's the date, and that's what we are working towards. But then there's so much more that has to happen after February 10th, right? Because then you have to think about adoption of the product. You need to think about engagement, how many people are actually using the product. They might have bought it or they might have adopted it, but are they really getting what they're needing from it? And then when we launch new features, because that's how you create the whole life cycle marketing, right? You want repeat
Mhm.
customers, right? And so for developers, that comes in the sense of community in so many ways, right? So at Google, and we used to do the same thing at AWS, we've had a community of Google developers, right? So we call them innovators. We nurture them in so many ways. We have a newsletter that goes out to them every Thursday. We have exclusive benefits, learning benefits, and even access to products that so that they can either access it before or right when it's launching. And that's like a way for people to engage with the product so that it doesn't slip their mind. But the other
Right.
thing that we do is leverage the influencers in the community. So
Mhm.
we have what we call champions. And the way I myself view champions, I see them as an extension of us in the community, and they really are the ambassadors of the product. So if you focus on serverless or you focus on AI, and you know all the serverless product that we launch, all the AI product that we launch, we usually give access to the champions before the product is even available, so they can start playing with it, they can start giving us feedback. And what end up happening most of the times is these people end up creating content to either educate other developers on how to use that product, right? So you will see them building videos and like writing
Mhm.
blogs and tutorials and releasing notebooks on GitHub that people can leverage. And I think them being in the community and really talking about the product allows the community to want to remain aware of what's going on, but also they can get a lot of feedback, which they always bring back to us. I know we used to do that at AWS. I know Microsoft does it. So many companies. I know Databricks just launched their version of that. So being able to nurture the community of developers, I think it's really, really important for the longevity of the product. Because if you don't
Yeah.
get feedback from them, you don't allow them to use the product, you don't give them access, you're not gonna have a successful product, right? Because there's one thing is awareness, but the other thing is like being able to have hands-on experience with that product. And that's where the product grows basically.
What in your opinion, what is what building these communities and
Mhm.
or developers and or influencers, what are they looking for? Hey, there's some swag. Here's a t-shirt. It says Google Cloud. Wonderful, right? Everyone likes the t-shirt, socks, great. What are they looking for as being an influencer? Is it access to the code? Is it the ability to be a leader? Is it like, can you tell me more about maybe from your interactions to date? What are some of those key things that the communities or influencers are looking for?
Vision, right? So
Mm,
being able to, oh, I've actually done all, I've completed all the certifications, and you give them all their badges and stuff, right? So they can go to the community and showcase, like, and brag basically. I am an expert in X, and I have like the certification to prove it. And the good thing is like all these certifications are, I actually found out they come back in your background check as like part of your education.
yeah.
So that's one thing. Some of them are really looking for the swag because they think swag is cool. It might not be physical swag with like t-shirts and like like a cool jacket or whatever, which we always end up doing in some situations, just like creating a like swag that makes you belong. When you look around, you see people who have the same thing, and you can walk to them at a conference and see someone's wearing like a t-shirt from like an event you went to, or like a swag that they gave you, like, oh, you were at this event, and then that's how you can strike a conversation, right? So
Like an exclusive club.
exactly, right? Like
Yeah.
that sense of community. And there's obviously like the ones who want to have access to products because they feel like influencing the roadmap of a product is really important to them. So being able to do that by allowing them to have access to alphas and betas is one way
Mhm.
you can do that. And the last thing that I think people get from these communities is they also get to build their own brand, right?
Mhm.
I've seen people become now consultants just because they are a Google Cloud champion or a Microsoft MVP or an AWS hero. And because of like how like it shows expertise in a specific area, and now they can go speak at conferences, they can get invited on podcasts, they can write blogs and things like that. They are able to build now their own professional and personal brand that they can take on the road basically if they need to.
Yeah, those companies or those areas or marketing, product management,
Mhm.
whatever, that have influencers doing the majority of that company's marketing on their behalf, or even the PR for that aspect, like they're doing something right.
Mhm.
That's when you have success, is when you see those communities like you're mentioning, because they're hungry on their own, pushing and driving the product. And you're not trying to like fight uphill or anything like that. It's
Yeah.
like go forth and build.
Yeah.
And that's where that developer marketing aspect, if done correctly, is gold,
Yeah.
and is one of those things which is so valuable and so important to software companies, to cloud companies, to AI companies, where we're looking at bringing something else to market that's developer
Oh,
focused.
definitely. And I think one thing people forget is yes, people say developers are against marketing, right? Everyone keeps talking about, oh, developer hates marketing. I think they hate marketing when it's intrusive, but they would like
Yeah.
marketing when it's useful. So if you make your marketing useful to them, they're more likely going to listen and more likely to pay attention to what you're doing. So a good example is if when I was at the App Store, we knew that developers wanted to monetize, right? If you're building an application, you want to make sure you're making money off of that application. And there's a lot of information out there about how to monetize, but then usually it's not very curated to a specific app store or to a specific system. So as a marketer, what can you do? You can write a blog or like a you can make a video on like these are the steps that you need to take to monetize, and here's how you monetize in Google Play, here's how you monetize in the Amazon App Store, here's how you monetize in the Apple App Store, right? That is a marketing piece. It's a piece of content. Content marketing is part of our jobs, but that's
Mhm.
a very, very useful piece of content to a developer. And when you send an email that says, hey, I have tips for you about how you can monetize your app, they're more likely to open the email and listen to you. But if you become very intrusive and just start talking about the bells and whistles of a product without really focusing on how
Yeah.
this is going to solve a problem for someone, again, it goes back to like thinking about the customer. They're not going to be willing or even open to listen to what you have to do. So you really have to make sure your marketing is very, very useful. And that's why we do things like webinars, we do things like tutorials and learning content. Because I think those are the things that help someone. They learn about your product, but they also learn how to solve a problem that they might be facing in their day to day. And that's the kind of marketing that works with developers.
Yeah, I agree with you, and it always has been an interesting one. Anytime I've done developer marketing or developer initiatives, so you have some that are like, "What marketing? Get out of here!"
Yeah.
And look, there are certain industries and areas where there's been bad developer marketing, and
Hmm.
it's many times when, no offense to my demand gen friends, when you're trying to let's go get developers, sign up on this list and get
Hmm.
them to put their email. Whoa, what are you offering to them?
Exactly.
And here's an ebook on how to put Java. No, it's not. They don't need an ebook for. They're not going to register for that. That's a bad way of going about it
Hmm.
for developers. But to be understanding of this, and this gets back to my own personal opinion about, if I'm going to look at a discipline like product marketing's job is, number one, is education.
Exactly.
And part of it is, you touched on it, and maybe come full circle on some of this. We talked about how you were learning yourself about AI and
Hmm.
learning about these development technologies. like you don't know where anyone is on that journey. So you
Exactly.
need to be able to meet them where they are. And that's where the role of product marketing come into play. And hey, let's give you what you need at the certain level. That's where AI is going to kill product marketing.
It's not.
Not really. It's going to help product marketers get better, but
Exactly.
it's not there yet. Maybe one day when we have Skynet or something crazy going on, but not today. The one point I did want to make on this, though, is really around that educational aspect and making sure people can help build and help grow. And I want to pivot from a developer perspective and ask your opinion on this because, okay, developers are customers. They're going to carry it. They're going to drive into market. And wicked important to keep them educated, meet them where they are, give them the right content. The other force, you have some people have, depending on your organization, how it's set up, you have a sales force. Some people sell in the big corporate enterprise. They have to learn, understand marketing or understand the content. How about partners? You have an opinion on partners on this journey because they're going to carry the torch both from a developer lens as well as a seller, right? And how do they play into community building and in your own perspective?
Partners are really, really important. And if you are building an organization and you don't think about enabling partners, you really are missing out, because there's only so much you can do and there's only so far you can go on your own. What partners do is they allow you to spread your wings, and they open up like a set of customers that you might not always get access to. And then there's another thing you have to remember is resources are finite, right? If you
Oh
have to
yeah.
do a POC with every single customer, you'll never really have many customers, because in some situation it takes forever to do a POC, right? But if you have partners that are trained and enabled for specific areas, basically become your voice and they represent you in those situations. Sorry, they represent you in those situations, which means if you can only do 100 POC a week, if your partner can help you, you might be able to do 200 POCs per week, right? And so that's one way to just spread and utilize partners for resources. The other thing with partners that I find very interesting is if you are in an industry that where you are very constrained in terms of I have these developers in my database and you always reach the same developers. If you want to expand, there's so many ways you will try and do paid media and all list buys and stuff like that. Those are not always effective. But if you have a partner who also has a set of existing developers and they know my developers or the developers in this database are interested in like data integration, right? Why not leverage that so you can expand basically the population that you get to reach, right? So I do think opening up your company to partners is really important. And then as a marketer, I think it's really important as you're thinking about enablement and go to market to think about the partner piece. Like it's just gonna help you in so many ways when it comes to the metrics that matter to you, whether it's adoption, whether it's engagement or usage of the product, or just awareness. I think being able to enable partners is really important. So I would recommend that every PMM who's even building a launch plan, make sure that your enablement plan also includes a partner enablement plan, because I
Oh
think
yeah.
it's really important.
Yeah, way too many times I've seen situations where partners are like an afterthought, and
Mhm.
the successful companies that I've seen are those that view partners as an extension of their sales force, or extension of their company in many ways. And
Yeah.
I would say sometimes people and don't. This would be my recommendation. Some folks are like, "Whoa, partners! They're going to give it to our competitors. The secret content we have
No.
inside." And well, even if they do, your competitors are going to get it from another customer or what. So you might as well just accept the fact, bite the bullet, and make sure you're treating your partners and those areas and those business, those extensions of your company, treat them well and empower them to take your voice and your market and your content forward. Um,
Definitely.
so hey, I'm looking at the time here, and wow, we burned through some time. I have a lot of things I want to ask you, but I want to close on this because we got to move on here. But I have one last question for you, and that's for those people that are new. They fell upon this podcast. They're like, hey, what's this stuff? And they're learning, and maybe they're new to launching. Maybe they're new to the industry or the space, or it could be a young organization that is maybe coming out and, hey, we want to bring this to market for the first time. How do we get this done? What recommendation, do you have anything at the top of your mind that'd be like, what would you recommend to those people from your perspective? That would be, what's one of the more important things you should be taking consideration of?
There's a few things that I think everyone can kind of do. there's a few sets of questions that are very important for you to answer. There are a set of questions that you have to answer, and if you have the right answer to those questions, you can have a really good launch plan. Because like you can say it's, yeah, I'm launching product A, but what is it really? You really have to be able to define what the product is and what is it solving. Like why are you launching this? It's solving problem B. For who?
Hmm.
You need to know who the customer is, because in some situation, and I've seen it where people start building product with one customer in mind, and this is my end customer, and once it's built, it's actually not for that customer. So you have to make sure you nail down the actual customer for that product, because if you get that piece wrong, you will launch something and it's not going to be used because it's misaligned with who's supposed to be using it. You need to think about what channels you are going to leverage for launching something. Because if you're in a B2B environment and you're in a B2C environment, there's two different ways of bringing a product to market. So like, and the channels that you are leveraging are going to be different. Like from a B2B perspective, yes, I'll have something on social, but social might not be the only way I can get traction. But if you're in a B2C environment, like social is a big part of your strategy. Whereas in the B2B environments, like enabling your sellers or like analysts could be a driver to drive awareness and get the right folks on your product than having something on social. I'm not saying that if you're in B2B, you shouldn't do social. I think being depending on who the customer is and the industry you're in, it kind of dictates which channels you should leverage. But the most important thing when you're launching is you have always have to think about it from the customer standpoint. You have to always work backward from the customer. If you build something and you launch something with the customer in mind, most likely your engineering team is going to build something that's useful, and you are going to market it to the people in ways that make it worthwhile for them to consider it. So if you don't think about anything else, think about the customer.
It always comes back to, it seems like all these conversations, it always comes back to even before you launch.
Yeah.
Make sure you're targeting correctly, you're positioning correctly,
Mhm.
you have the right personas
Oh my
aligned, and
goodness.
you really, really, really understand what the customer needs are. Then, okay, then let's roll in and then pull out social and demand
Hmm.
gen
Hmm.
and, like PR. And so that's one of the things we're going to be doing here over, I would say, I don't know, weeks and weeks and weeks. We're going to start digging in a little bit more to, let's talk about market intelligence and where it fits. Let's talk in
Hmm.
demand gen. Let's talk about growth marketing
Hmm.
and understanding all these different areas of that launch process. But Natasha, awesome talk with you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and thanks for sharing all your wisdom and insight. And wow, just send me these some images or
I
show me where I can learn more about these.
definitely will send
I'm
them to
all super
you.
excited. I want to get off and start checking out what you guys are doing here at these
I'll send you
events
the
because
pictures and the videos. But one thing I want, first of all, I want to say thank you for having me on the podcast. And I honestly think this is gonna be very useful because when I got into marketing, there wasn't anything like this where you can just listen to people from different walks of life, different industries, and talk about how they do marketing. And so being able to have this, I wish I had this when I was young in the industry. But I guess I can thank you for creating this now for the people who are now either young in the industry or mature in the industry, but who still want to keep up with the way things are done across industries. I think this is great. And thank you so much for starting this.
cool.
And thank you so much for having me here.
Cool. Thank you very much. And like, it warms my heart. You'll be my first influencer then, because I'll have you
I'll do my
take.
best. I'll do my best. As
Awesome.
long as you
Thanks
give me
again.
swag.
Oh, I got to develop that now too, right?
There you
Anyway,
go.
all good. Thanks again. Have a great one, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye,
Take
Larry.
care. Bye.